Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg Farrell. Those of you who don't know, I am the Development Manager for West Coast Futsal Association. Basically, first of all, I need to say a big thank you to Annie Leyland. Those of you who know her know how much work she does. The majority of the things that I do around Perth and for futsal in WA wouldn't happen without her. At least they certainly wouldn't happen as well as they do. So big thank you to Annie. Secondly, at this time of crisis, upheaval, whatever you want to call it, we need to say a big thank you to the people who are on the front lines in Australia. So doctors, nurses, even as far as teachers, bankers, people who work in jobs that are necessary and have a lot of contact with people, even down to storekeepers and people who work at Woolworths and Coles. So when you see those people, please make sure you reiterate to them that what they do is important and that we really appreciate what they do. Now, as I said, we're looking to have lots of these moving forward. If we can have guests from different parts of the country, even different parts of the world. I've spoken to coaches and other people involved with futsal over the last couple of days about ideas for what I want to do, and I've seen similar sorts of things from other parts of the world. It's an idea that we can build upon moving forward as well. It doesn't need to stop at a certain point in time. It doesn't need to be limited to while we are all limited and staying inside. But if there are good things that come out of this situation with the coronavirus, then hopefully we can make sure that as a futsal community we're contributing. So, we obviously will have one or two little hiccups as we go. Excuse the earphones in my ears, they are noise cancelling, so we will have one or two minor hiccups as we go, but please just bear with us. Now, I have asked people to contribute questions. We will get to those as we go along. I'll have 3 guests on with me today. First of all will be Tom Ellis, who was the West Coast State Youth Men's Captain, has been for the last 2 years. He was the co-captain at the National Championships in January. I will then have Zoee Spadano, who was in the women's state team, has played, as well as Tom, has played up through the age groups from junior state teams and was in the women's team this year. And then I'll have Kevin Punselie, who has been the state men's futsal captain for the last 2, possibly 3 years. He'll probably correct me when I speak to him later on, but I'm sure it's been 3 years actually. Yeah. So we'll have those guests on. We'll do a little bit of chit chat between us, and we'll also react to questions that we get online as we'll try to react as we get them, but it's going to be a little bit of a process, so please just bear with us. So we want, as I said, we want to discuss futsal in the community, but again, also, if there are people that you know who are having a hard time, small businesses, big businesses, if we can help, if we can do a shout out for them, whatever it is, please let us know, send us a message, and we'll get in touch with them and we'll see what we can do. We'll make it as big as possible. Now, as I said, I have spoken to coaches from other parts of the country, and I would like to get more in-depth with actual tactical discussions as well as technical discussions moving forwards. Today is more just going to be a little bit of an introduction, and we'll talk to people about their experiences and their beliefs and what they enjoy about futsal, essentially. Now, we are just waiting for Tom Ellis, trying to get him involved with the stream, but just having a slight issue. Until Tom jumps on, I will just quickly run through a few of the questions that I have already been asked. So one of the ones that we get most often, or that I seem to get most often, is what is my futsal philosophy? And it's certainly not an easy question to answer. It has a lot of depth, and it changes as well. You learn and you progress and you get better. I try probably not to think too much in terms of a philosophy overall, but the principles that guide me and guide the way that I coach, the way that I interact with people. So those things, like I said, those are some of the questions that we have been asked to discuss, but we now have Tom ready to go, so we'll move on to that and we'll come back to those things later.
Just waiting for Tom's connection. You there, Tom? Oh,
yeah.
There he is.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm all right. So I decided during the week to go the opposite way to what your hair was going to look like, and went for a bit of a trim.
No, I think they both look good. I did actually get the hairbrush out a couple of seconds ago just to make sure. That's why I'm a little bit late.
I gave you like an hour's notice.
Yeah, no, I realised that I actually joined on the wrong account. So
No, okay.
I was watching. I heard every word you said, so don't stress about that.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much for joining us. So, like I've just been saying, there's loads of things that we're going to move on to as we progress over the next, hopefully, weeks and months. But a couple of questions for you. So, first of all, having been the captain for the men's the youth men's team, how do you think the side and the dynamics have developed over the last several years with your involvement and what you've seen from where we were maybe 2 or 3 years ago?
Well, like you said before, just a couple of minutes ago, is I've been fortunate enough to be in control and captain that team for a couple of good years, and I've been fortunate enough to be under the influence of a couple of excellent coaches and managers as well. So I'd say, look, on behalf of everyone that I've worked with over the couple of years, the thing that I've been really impressed with is just the consistency of obviously West Coast, and on how well we organise training sessions, and the time period throughout the year we start getting the training sorted is really well done. And I think that we've had a lot of different ages come in the last couple of years. So we were playing in an under-21s competition in the last 2 years, and we've had 14-year-olds smash it in that competition as well. So I think it also is a massive good look on West Coast as well, having people like young players like Kai John, who was with us for the last 2 years, playing in such a big big competition with such a large age. So look, the work rate and how the work that everyone's put in the last couple of years has been phenomenal, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who will say it, but I'm very impressed with everyone who's been a part of it.
Yeah, terrific. Well, one of the things that you just touched on with people like Kai has been the fact that there has been a progression over the last couple of years of players coming through, almost a conveyor belt, I guess. And that's something that we planned out 5 or 6 years ago when you first started, and we took people like John Goodlich, yourself, Lockie over to Sydney for your first national championships, was having that progression in mind where there was somewhere for you to go. So my next question for you, playing in the local competition, in the state level competition, the Superliga, how has playing for a club like the Hawks developed you? You also played in the Superliga with the Young Guns several years ago with I believe it was the under 16 or under 18 rep side.
Yeah.
But what's how do you feel that playing with the Hawks has helped your development?
Well, look, like I was actually speaking to someone about this today. I've just been really, really fortunate to be a part of such a great team, and obviously, massive thanks to you for inviting me several years ago as well to come and play with such a good side. And it was mainly to be with players like Logan Rindle and his brother Devon, and that have travelled around to so many different places in the world to see how differently the game can be. And I guess just having all those different types and ways of futsal being played in such a team is, I would say that's probably the biggest influence. Having, someone tell me something, a direction or a way, and then having someone else tell me something completely different that maybe one has gotten from Spain and one has gotten from here. Definitely over the past couple of years playing with them, that's definitely been such a huge help. And having, like I said, those players really having your back for everything you do, whether if the game gets heated or if they're trying to build up your confidence or anything particular like that. But yeah, no, that's definitely, I've really, really enjoyed playing with those guys in the last couple of years. And of course, being under the influence of you as well as coach for that. We've had our moments, but it's been a very good couple of years playing with the Hawks.
Yeah, oh, that's good. And a quick shout out to all of those players who you just mentioned, and a lot of other players who I have had the pleasure of working with. So lastly, and you just sort of touched on it then, in your short career, you have been lucky enough to travel overseas. How did that affect your, I guess, not just your futsal, not just your understanding of the game, but how did it affect your approach to the game? How did it affect your love of the game, your enjoyment of the game itself?
Well, like you said, I've been fortunate enough to do a couple of things over East and overseas, and I guess it is rather similar to the last question as well, on how differently I got to see the game from different perspectives, from different people, from various clubs. I was lucky enough to travel to Italy 2 or 3 years ago, and I was there for about a month, and it was a very, very phenomenal experience. I won't ever forget being under the influence of various different coaches and very well-known ones in the country for the game. So, yeah, look, that is really just what I enjoy. I really enjoy doing those kind of things, and I really like where we are now as a club and as an organisation, as how everyone's still learning every single time. Every single weekend you rock up, you're still learning, there's still something to be going on. And yeah, that's something that already itself is a dream. I think that I really want to continue doing that week in, week out. Having just that constant learning every weekend is such a good thing, and something that you can't get a lot out of sports. There's some really boring sports out there that you really can't you'll master in the first year of playing it. But I think futsal and football are one of those games where you can just non-stop learn. Even Pele and Maradona, they're still watching from the stands, but learning still things about the game today. So I think that's, to answer part of your question, I think just it's all about what we're going on now, what we've got going. We've got something really good going on. The international trips obviously help and are a benefit for everyone. Just to see, like I said, when you asked about the players that I play with in the club at Hawks, is having the different perspectives of the game. Obviously, having someone like you who's worked over East for a couple of years, and having people like Rikwan Azri, who's seen things from over overseas
Tasmania.
and also in Tasmania as well. So, it's definitely been, that's, a big feel at the moment with everything that's going on.
Yeah. All right. Well, Tom, thank you very much for your time. I am going to have to move on. Please make sure you look after yourself and stay a safe distance from everybody. Please keep listening though, and if you have any questions that you wanna ask, just chuck a message on, put a comment on.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me,
Tom.
Greg.
Cheers. All right, so up next is going to be Zoee Spadano. What we are going to do is we'll just have a couple, similar to what we've just done with Tom. We'll ask a couple of questions and we'll move on with, just having a little bit of a technical issue at the moment. But I'll ask Zoe some questions and get answers, and then we'll move on from there. Just having a little bit of an issue adding Zoe at the moment. Sorry, please bear with us. While we are having a little bit of a technical issue, I might just continue on with some of the things that I was talking about earlier. You okay, Annie? So one of the questions that I received yesterday or the day before was from Jonathan Silas, who is a referee. He referees in the Superliga, has refereed in social futsal as well. Jonathan's question was about the development that is possible for referees. So with all association sporting groups, there is a holistic idea, a holistic aim to be able to not just develop one group, not just developing players, we're not just developing coaches, not just giving parents or managers opportunities, but we are giving everybody the opportunity to develop. So with our referees, we have in the past had referees who have gone over to the national championships. We have had referee development workshops. We have a very good group of referees who referee in the Superliga, and we have workshops at the start of the season to discuss ideas, to discuss the way that we want things to be done, if there are rule changes, or if there are, especially with rule changes from FIFA as they happen, but then also interpretations of certain things. We discuss them, make sure that everyone is on the same page. And of course, as with anything, during the course of a season, those things change. People make decisions on the fly that are different to what they have done, or they see something slightly differently. So it's always a work in progress. And with the referees, it's a difficult situation in some ways as well, because it's such a fast, action-packed game that not many people are good enough to be a futsal referee. And I know that might sound like me talking up people who referee futsal, but it's not. I've had, as a referee instructor, I've had players who have played state-level football, have played NPL for a long period of time in outdoor football, and playing it at the top level, but they've then and they've played social futsal and played it at a good level and been quite good, but then they've thrown their hat into the ring to referee, and it's been a very difficult thing. So and I actually had one NPL player 2 or 3 years ago who refereed a half of a social A grade game with me and couldn't continue. That's all right, Annie, put her on. So it's a difficult thing, refereeing, and it's certainly not for everybody. And it is definitely something that we want to I guess, improve as we move forward is not just the development of what we do for the referees, but the development of the referees themselves. All right, so as everyone can see, we have gotten over those technical issues, and we now have Zoee Spadano on with me. Zoee, how are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for coming on, and sorry that we had a little bit of a technical delay. I sent you a few questions that we wanted to discuss the other day. First of all, and quite simply, what is it that you enjoy about futsal? And it doesn't simply have to be about just futsal on the court. What is it that you enjoy about the game and what we do, what you do with us?
One of the main things I enjoy futsal is the great friends that I made throughout the journey, and the community of like coaches and everybody. But as well as that, I really like the pace of the game and how it challenges me in different ways that outdoor doesn't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, and just touching on the community, that sort of family, you started doing a little bit of coaching work with some of our juniors in January. How did that change, or did that change how you felt about the game or how you thought about the game?
I felt like coaching made me understand like how I come across on the court, and like the way that I try and instruct on the court has changed as I understand how people like understand what I say differently, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. No, that's really good. All right, so next question. And this is one that I will also touch on with our next guest, Kevin. You were a part of the first West Coast team to win a national championships back in 2018 with the 16 girls. Can you go through for our guests, I guess, what that was like, but also what did you have to do to get there? What led to that culmination with the tournament win?
Well, I feel like the first few years we were still learning and developing and weren't necessarily getting to finals, but we were still developing that core group that what made us like successful in making it to the grand final in 2018. And with that, I feel like the moment when we won, we had like pretty much the whole of West Coast and everything in the stands, and it just made us like prove to everybody else that we can do it, we can win, and that we're not just West Coast.
Yeah, well, and that was, I think there'd probably been a little bit of I think there always will be a little bit of an issue with anyone who has to travel from Perth across to the eastern states with the distance, the fact that we have different time zones, the amount of traveling that we have to do, and it always does make things difficult. But I agree with what you're saying, with what you said about the fact that it showed people what is possible, and I think that was a terrific culmination of several years of work for you girls, and also people like Kevin, Jess Lindquist, who put a lot of time and effort into that team. So, last question for you: what would you like to achieve in futsal as a career, as a pathway for you?
Well, obviously I want to like try and become professional and play at the highest level that like I possibly can. But with that, I'm willing to like travel and like better myself and develop different styles of playing futsal, as I feel like trying to escape just that basic like style that everybody's playing and like develop a different sense of like variations and style of futsal. Yeah. But with that, I also want to develop more with the coaching career and like give younger generations like what I got when I was like coming through West Coast.
Yeah, well, and that's, I guess that's the big idea behind getting people like you and Tom, Kayla McCulloch, Hayley Jean, people who have had some very, very good coaches over the last several years involved in coaching. I know, as you said before, that you've enjoyed it and feel that you've benefited from it. sorry, I am going to ask you one more question, so I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. With the coaching part of it, do you think there are things that you would do differently as a player 3 or 4 years ago because of what you've learned now?
Yeah,
Do you
100%.
You think you would change because of what you know now?
Yeah. Well, when I
Yeah.
started, I wouldn't say a word on the court. And I feel like coaching is very frustrating when nobody communicates. And that is one thing that I'll definitely change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Zoe, thank you very much for your time. I know jumping on here wasn't necessarily something that you would have loved doing, but
Can't say it was.
everybody certainly will appreciate your input, and I very much appreciate you helping me out.
That's good.
All right. Thank you, Zoe. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye. All right. That was Zoe Spadano. So we will move on to our last guest, which is Kevin Punselie. It might take a little bit of time. Again, I think we're just having an issue with Instagram allowing us to add another person immediately after we've said goodbye to the previous. So we'll get Kevin on as soon as we can. But I'll just go through. So I probably just about finished what I was talking about with Jonathan Silas's question, which was that we do and certainly will be looking to continue to make improvements on what we offer referees and where we're going with our referees. I have also had several other questions while we've been sitting here and other questions. So I did mention the futsal philosophy, the principles that guide how you do things. So I will just quickly, sorry, bear with me. Sorry, Annie's just showing me something.
So there's a question, what are some of futsal exercises we can do in isolation?
Okay, so I'm not sure if you could hear Annie just then, but Annie, who was it put that question on?
I believe it was Fionn.
Oh, so Fionn Mulholland, hi Fionn, has put a question on asking for some futsal exercises that you can do in isolation. Fionn, if you don't mind, I'll just get Kevin on because we've just gotten him ready, and then I will be happy to answer that question for you. You there, Kev? Connecting. Oh, there he is. Look at that handsome devil.
Oh, stop it, Greg.
How are you?
I'm right, thanks. Yourself?
Good. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for joining us. Now, we have sorted out that little technical issue that we had. I've spoken to Tom and to Zoe, and my first question for you, you came into futsal from playing socially and then refereeing the Superliga. What progression do you think you've been most happy with since you started in 2015?
I don't know. I think I started playing in 2012 actually, and I was like social mixed at Hollywood.
Yeah.
And at the time, I'd never really thought of doing futsal as like anything other than a social sport, if that makes sense. It wasn't until I started refereeing Superliga until I started seeing what was involved and all the level that everyone was playing at, basically. That's when I started to really get into futsal as more than just a social sport. But looking back on then and comparing it to today, I don't think I ever would have thought that I'd be sitting here chatting to you. I've represented West Coast futsal now at national level, coaching and playing. And that's something that I'm super proud of myself. Like, again, I didn't believe I'd get to that stage ever. And also going further and representing Australia in a tour in Barcelona, in Spain. That's something I never would have dreamed of before I started playing Super League, really. But I think the next thing for me would probably be representing West Coast at an international level. I think we have Japan 2021 in the works. Coaching and playing would be huge for me, and possibly even representing Australia in a competition as a player. That'd be something I'm looking forward to, hopefully.
Really need to make sure you get that passport, hey?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've got that done now. So I've got my citizenship as of this year. So hopefully now I get the opportunity to do
Just
that.
some backward information for those who aren't in the loop. Kev was actually selected for the Australian men's team last year, but hadn't done the necessary paperwork to be eligible for selection. He's gotten that sorted now, which is terrific. All right, so next, well, I might actually skip over the second question because you've just sort of touched on the third one. You have coached multiple state teams, including the 16 girls that won the tournament in 2018. You've also then taken an Australian team over to Barcelona. As a junior coach, what do you feel what are your priorities, but also what are your strengths? What do you do well, and what do you enjoy about coaching juniors?
I think in terms of priorities as a junior coach, it really varies between the levels and between the age groups. So when you're thinking younger age groups, like before they're teenagers or anything like that, you want to really work on their skill sets, their skills in general, their ball work, and then as they grow older, their mid-teens, probably start giving them a better understanding of what futsal's about, getting them out of the outdoor mentality, which things like their first touch, things like their movement, start getting out of that habit of playing outdoor football, really. And then when we get to like the older age groups, the 16, 17, 18-year-olds, that's when you can start doing tactics, things like their shape, their set plays, but also refining everything else that they've learned as they've grown older. But I think overall, really, the priority overall, I think, is really getting their knowledge of futsal in general to a better level, because I think it's still a hugely growing sport in Australia where not many people even know about it. Like, they all think it's just soccer, like a seven-a-side soccer or something, or they call it indoor soccer or something like that, rather than it actually being a sport, like
a sport
proper
of its own.
sport that can be played. Yeah. It's not quite at that level in Australia. Well, it's pretty difficult as well, considering all the cities are so far apart from each other. It's hard to travel from one place to another. But I think starting with the juniors, getting their level of understanding a little bit higher is a good start to getting to that level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no. All right. And I guess you have sort of now touched on what was to be our second question, but is our third one. You yourself have given up playing outdoor football at the top levels that you had played at. What were the things that convinced you to come across the futsal? And I mean, I'm sure you do. I know you still are involved with outdoor football, but as a player, what were the things that convinced you to make that change?
I had a lot of different factors, I think, that decided that. But I think first and foremost, I had to get the right balance between my work, social, and sport life. So I was working full-time, I was playing outdoor, playing futsal, and trying to be social as well, but it was a bit difficult considering everything I needed for futsal and to play futsal and outdoor. I had to have the whole weekend off, which just wasn't really a thing, and it was taking out a lot of energy for me. So deciding to go with futsal was actually quite easy in the end, considering just the overall West Coast family. It made it easy for me to bring my social life